Eddie Jones, never change. The man is the gift that keeps on giving. And I couldn't help but laugh when I saw him doing his final press conference on Australian soil before leaving on the plane to France, calling it the most negative press conference he's ever done. Here are some edited highlights if you haven't seen.
I know what's wrong with Australian rugby. And part of you blokes are the problem, because you're so bloody negative about everything. So negative about everything. But I know you blokes think we can't do any good, so don't ask any questions, boys. Just be the pessimist you are. Keep Australian rugby where it's been. Keep it where it's been. Complain about players that don't get selected. Keep doing about that, because it's fantastic, because we love it.
Really?
No, let him keep going, mate. I love this. I love this negativity. It's fantastic. I love it, love it. Keep going, keep going. Keep going, keep going. Keep going.
What was the real, what did you see the difference?
Oh, nothing, mate. We're terrible. You know we're terrible. Just tell us we're terrible. And we'll prove you wrong. I can feel this negativity coming out. I can't. I've got to wash myself off, boys. I've got to wash myself off because it's just sticking to me. Thanks for the worst press conference I've ever had in World Rugby. Worst press conference. Well done, boys. That is the worst I've ever seen. Forget it, boys. All right, good luck. You've got to give yourselves uppercuts, boys.
Got to say, love the get-up of the Australians. Eddie looking like EDDIANA Jones in his Akubra hat. Awesome. Love the look. Carter Gordon with his mullet looked particularly good in it. I mean, very impractical for a long-haul flight. You're not going to be wearing that hat the whole time, are you? 17 hours or whatever it is. That's going to get crushed in an overhead locker. But loving the effort and loving Eddie Jones. And I can't help but miss him. Now, I was ready for him to leave as England head coach by the end of last year. And I was calling for it as well by the end. I was one of the biggest defenders of Eddie Jones for a long time because I thought, and I still think, that the job he did as England head coach was absolutely outstanding. And the further we get away from it, the better it looks, doesn't it? Because with pretty much the same group of players, looking back at England in the World Cup final, winning a Grand Slam, 3 Six Nations titles and equalling the world record number of consecutive victories of Tier 1 nations, whitewashing an Australia tour down under 3-0 away from home. Kind of looks good now, doesn't it? But it got bad by the end. I was there at Twickenham for that South Africa game when the boos, last November, was it? But I've never known Twickenham like that. That was bad. And that was the point at which I thought, right, something's got to change. But maybe, I'm willing to concede that maybe it wasn't all Eddie. Maybe it wasn't Eddie at all. Because maybe the problems in rugby are deeper rooted. And this comes to the point, I guess, Eddie Jones was making in his press conference about the negativity surrounding the sport. Maybe that is an issue that we've got. Rugby does talk itself down quite a lot, don't you think? Do you agree? But maybe the issues, certainly in the English game, financial mismanagement, the quality of the domestic league dropping, too many foreign-born players blocking the pathway for young English guys to step up to the national team, but players just maybe not being as good as we thought they were. All of those could be issues, because it hasn't got a lot better. But I would say, to Eddie Jones's point, rugby doesn't help itself. We've been talking about rugby not helping itself with really muddled disciplinary processes that have been all over the news this week. But I guess if we don't love the sport, and if we're not positive about the sport, why would we expect anyone who's not a regular rugby fan? Why would we expect a casual rugby fan to tune in during this World Cup if all they're seeing of the sport is negative stories? I'm not saying the journalists or newspapers or anyone should run cover for rugby. We should call a spade, say something's rotten when it's rotten, and all the rest of it. However, is that the picture that we're sending out a little bit too much? I think it probably is. Eddie might be onto something in that much. Because let's just take this. If you were not a regular rugby fan and you weren't aware of what's going on, what would you know of rugby from the last week? You haven't heard a jot about an amazing game between France and Scotland, have you? All you've heard about is accusations of corruption, of poor administration, even accusations of things like racism has come out of this Owen Farrell situation. I don't buy that one bit. For all of the issues I have with it, I do think there's an argument that we talk ourselves down way too much. And we should remember we're 3 weeks away from a Rugby World Cup, and we should just remind ourselves of how amazing this sport is. of the incredible benefits there are to anyone who's involved in the sport. Like, for example, rugby's always been a dangerous sport, and efforts are being made to make it safer and mitigate some of the issues. Rugby's always been a dangerous sport, always been riskier, and I think it's good that efforts are being made to try and make it safer. What I would also say is, and how about this as a flip side, rugby's never been safer. That's a fact. Rugby's never had more awareness or medical expertise or help. That sort of stuff never gets talked about. And also, when you're talking about rugby, let's not just talk about the potential issues with injuries or whatever it may be. The incredible benefits of our sport for young people getting into it far outweighs. I mean, for me, even if rugby was more dangerous than it is, I would go back and in a heartbeat do it all over again every time, because what it's given me, the benefits far outweigh any negatives. And that is true in all aspects of our sport. And I guess that's the thing I'm kind of thinking about and taking from Eddie Jones's press conference, funny and entertaining as it is maybe the sport could do with a bit more positivity. And if you agree with that, then let's see how many views and stuff videos like this get versus some of the more negative ones. So hit that little like button if you want to tell the algorithm that you like a good positive rugby avenue. And I would just finally say, Eddie Jones, he's just a gift and a joy. Maybe it's just genius and he's taking all the heat off of his Australian players. But what I will say is, whatever the case, he is not ever going to give us a media-trained, cliche-filled answer to a question. And I think it's all the better for it. The same goes with Rassie Erasmus. Don't always agree with what Rassie says. I think he's an amazing rugby mind, and I think he's a huge character, and the game is all better for it. And Steve Borthwick, whatever his rugby intellect is like, I do wish he would open up a little bit more and just tell us a bit more about what he really thinks, rather than hitting us with the cliches a lot. And that goes for rugby in general. I want players to not feel scared to give their opinion. I want players to showcase what they're really about, because the people in our sport are of amazing substance, brilliant characters, and they're willing to open up. I think they're getting more and more scared to do so. So I hope there's a bit more positivity around rugby over the next few weeks building up to the Rugby World Cup. Bring it on. There we go. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that one. And final thought, just to reiterate, Eddie, love the hat.